And I'm Doug Llewellyn here in our studios in Los Angeles with our guest today, who is the president of a company called Site Safety, which is headquartered in New York. They have branches in Los Angeles as well as perhaps some other areas, and we'll find out about that. I'd like you to meet him now. His name is Peter Amato. Peter, welcome. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Doug.
Nice to have you with us. Explain to me that when we get right down to it, Site Safety, what do you do? What do you do on construction sites?
Well, Doug, we provide site safety managers that visually inspect construction projects for hazards to workers and members of the public alike. So we'll walk a project and make sure that things aren't falling off of a building. We'll make sure that workers aren't falling into a hole. I've actually been on multiple projects, and what we see ranges from someone using a hand drill in a pool to electrical drill to someone who's dangling off of a small rope tied around their waist in an elevator shaft.
Who hires you? Is it the company that's building the project? In this case, you do a lot in New York, skyscrapers, I presume. Who brings you on board?
Yes, we're hired by owners, developers, general construction managers, as well as general contractors for the most part.
And why do they bring you on board?
They bring us on board, I like to think, because we're the experts in high-rise safety, but it is in certain jurisdictions a requirement, for example, in New York City, to have a site safety manager present on the project.
But I mean, for example, if somebody falls, and gets killed in the midst of a construction of a building, it creates problems for everybody involved, right?
Absolutely.
And so what they want to do is prevent that.
Yes, yes. So we like to think that we're best at doing that.
I mean, you're getting about insurance costs, a lot of investigation. Sometimes construction is halted. There are lots of headaches when accidents happen on construction sites. So you're brought in to try and prevent that from happening, really,
right.
At the bottom line.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. I have a bunch of pictures here. Let me show a couple of these. And these are some examples of the kind of things you get into and help straighten out. If we can move in a little closer, it'd be great. But what am I looking at here?
That is a photo that I personally took on a construction project a number of years ago where someone was using a ladder inappropriately on a scaffold. This scaffold was about 3 stories high in an interior project. So this is the type of thing that we see where they're using equipment improperly. Human error and just using the equipment improperly causes injuries.
I mean, you can look at it and tell it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, even to the inexperienced person, you can look at that and say it's not safe.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's take another look at another picture here. What about this one?
Yeah, this is one of my favorites that I took. This is an individual who decided to save time by not moving a ladder out of the way and then shifting his scaffold over. So he kind of spread himself out over 2 pieces of equipment. Not smart.
Again, another accident waiting to happen. Yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that to you. Here's another picture.
Sure. This one here, if you can tell, it has an individual in the bucket of an excavator, and he's leaning into a trench which should be shored up on each side to prevent it from caving in. So 2 things are wrong here. There's no shoring in the trench, and in addition, he's riding the machine, which is not as safe.
Now, did you guys take this picture? Was this?
I didn't personally take that picture.
Right. I was going to ask you, if you came on the site and you saw this picture, what would you do?
Well, we would automatically ask that the operation stop and that the individual come out of the trench, and then to install some shoring in that trench and have him enter the trench properly through a ladder.
So that would cause a lot more work to be done, though, if they got to shore up that trench.
Exactly. That was just to save time and money.
But you'd be saving a life in the end
Exactly.
of it. Here's another interesting looking one.
This is a very common practice, Doug. A lot of individuals that have been experienced in the industry and construction doing this many years, this individual may have sat on that I-beam many times and performed the same function, but that one time they slip or fall without fall protection, they can get killed.
So what's the major problem here? It's just that he's sitting and not being with a safety harness wrapped around it? Is that it?
Yeah, he's not protected from falling off of that beam.
Okay.
And
all right. There were some instances where the beam wasn't properly anchored too, as well, which could be another problem, right?
Yes, sometimes beams shift and rotate.
Exactly. Here's a scene that you see a lot in a city like New York. What do you see right off the bat that bothers you?
Yeah, this scaffold here would appear to be an okay scaffold for someone who's not experienced in construction safety. But there are no guardrails on that scaffold system to prevent someone from falling off of the outside of that platform. Very dangerous.
All right. And the wood could shift up there, but maybe that's not a big problem. But it's mainly there's nothing there to stop somebody from falling off.
Yes, that's correct.
Handrails around the side. All right, okay. And last but not least, one other picture. This is another one. I've seen scenes like this. I'm sure you have too, wherever you are. Tell me about this one.
Well, this one is actually not a high-rise construction project, as you can see. So construction safety affects workers in every industry. This is a residential home being built, and these workers are not protected at all, and they're doing things that should not be done, particularly with the person on top of that high-low with the plywood.
Yeah.
They could certainly fall off and get killed or seriously injured.
So these are just some of the typical examples of things that are wrong that you see on construction sites. You know, I know you work primarily in New York. These are all basically New York pictures. You also have an office in Los Angeles, and I'm wondering, is there a lot of difference between what goes on in construction in LA compared with New York?
Well, we do see similar problems where human error is definitely the factor when it comes to accidents, but the differences are that in New York they have certain legal requirements for recurring safety training, or the mandating of a site safety manager or a fire safety manager, which you really don't see outside of New York.
And talk to me a little bit about the training that you guys have to have. I mean, what kind of background do they need? Obviously, they've got to be knowledgeable in construction to begin with.
Yes, our safety engineers run the whole gamut, from someone who has 5 years of experience and someone who has 30 years of experience in safety, construction safety. We also require certifications, and there are multiple levels of certifications, and/or education. But the bottom line is we always find the right fit for the right project. So we know that if someone is really trained in high-rise construction or concrete operations, we place those individuals on those types of projects.
What's the most difficult construction site to handle safety issues on? Is it the tall high-rise buildings?
I think that's correct, Doug. I think that the high-rise construction projects have so many facets of things that can go wrong, from multiple cranes on the project to hundreds of individual workers on the project to also outside of the construction project itself. So we want to make sure that we're not dropping things off of the building and injuring someone on the street, and we also want to make sure that everyone on that job site goes home at the end of the day.
And the key question is, when your man or woman, I guess it could be, on the scene, sees something that is wrong, that's the threat to whoever it is, to their life. What happens? What kind of power do they have on the construction site?
Well, typically, our policy is that they will confront the individual performing the hazardous action or activity,
right,
and cause them to stop doing that. We'll also then seek the assistance of their supervisor or the superintendent of construction on the job site to stop that hazard.
Because, I mean, they don't want to shut the operation down. They're working for the company that's actually building it. It's not like the city inspector they're coming in that would hold everything. They want to just encourage that safety is foremost, and that it's respected, and these people do observe the rules.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Developing the rapport with the worker is really key for us, and that help you mitigate all those hazards. Being a diplomat on a construction project is very common.
No, I was going to say,
Yeah.
not easy, I'm sure. And you're working with lots of different kinds of people, and they speak all kinds of languages.
That's true.
Very true, especially in some place like New York. How has safety changed on construction sites? Is it a lot better now than it was years ago?
Absolutely. Back in the early 1970s, there were probably an average of 35,000 workers killed on construction projects in the United States, if you can believe that,
Wow,
Doug.
that's a lot.
The latest figures now have drastically been reduced. Still too far and too many. About 3,500 employees are killed every year. I see the push now for something like what we do in New York City, which is to have a person solely dedicated to walk that project, identify safety hazards, and not have any other tasks or duties but safety.
Right. Something else I'm interested in is you work at finding veterans jobs, don't you?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Sure. We have a program where we have been approved by the Veterans Administration to allow an apprenticeship program for veterans. So, for
Right.
example, someone who's left the military can now enter our apprenticeship program, work there for 18 months, learning about safety, kind of becoming the super safety manager, if you will, where we give them all of the training. They get about 4 or 5 weeks of training in the classroom, and they also get 18 months in the field training. At the conclusion of that training, they become a full-fledged certified site safety manager and can now go work anywhere in the country.
And when I mentioned before that you do this on construction sites, do you also do it for other industries as well, like the oil drilling industry, or things like that?
Yes, our specialty is really high-rise construction. However, we do work in hospitals and schools, refineries, cell towers, bridges, tunnels, etc. Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing story of a company called Site Safety, and we thank you for being here to tell us about it, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity, Doug.